It starts with a secret and a lie so small she almost believed it herself. My sister took the boy I loved, so I made a choice that would break our family forever. I went after his older brother, not for love, but for a revenge so precise it felt like justice. What I didn't know was that he had been waiting for someone like me all along. And then, everything exploded. This is the story of how a single act of sibling betrayal can fracture a family's foundation. It's about the calculated revenge that followed, and the one person no one saw coming, the older brother who wasn't supposed to be part of the plan. What happens when revenge finds its perfect target, but love decides to rewrite the script? The collision was inevitable, and it began not with a fight, but with a quiet, deliberate shift in focus. For 22 years, we were not just sisters, we were a single unit. Lily, the older one by 18 months, was the sun. I was the moon, perfectly content in her reflected light. We shared a room until I was 16, secrets until the day it happened, and a silent, furious competition that psychologists say is hardwired into sibling pairs. We were that cliché, two girls fighting for the same slice of attention in a world that often only had room for one of us at a time. The crush, his name was Leo. He was new in town, with a laugh that felt like summer and an easy confidence that drew everyone in, including, I thought, me. For 3 months, it was the quiet, hopeful secret I carried. The texts that lingered a little too long, the way he'd find me at parties. I told Lily everything. I showed her the messages. I asked for her advice on what to wear when our group hung out. She was my strategist, my confidant. And then, at my own birthday dinner, I saw his hand under the table, not reaching for mine, but holding hers. The look she gave me wasn't apologetic. It was a victory, calm and complete. The research is clear. Sibling betrayal cuts deeper than almost any other. Psychologist Jennifer Freyd calls it betrayal trauma, a wound inflicted by someone your survival is tied to. In that moment, my survival, my entire understanding of who I was in relation to her, shattered. The family dinner table became a war zone of silent treatments and loaded glances. My parents, desperate for peace, uttered the most damaging phrase of all: "Girls, work it out. He's just a boy." But he wasn't. He was the symbol, and she had taken him. Revenge, in the cold light of behavioral studies, is a social equalizer. It's an attempt to restore perceived balance after a humiliation. My humiliation was absolute, so my plan was simple, cold, and strategic. I would go after Leo's older brother, Ethan. If Lily wanted to be part of his family, I would plant myself at the very head of it. I would become, in title, the one she had to call sister. It was a move designed not for love, but for a permanent, architectural shift in our power dynamic. Ethan Han was 28, 5 years older than Leo. Where Leo was all easy charm, Ethan was a quiet force. He'd taken over their family's import business when their father passed, turning it into something twice its size. He was the steady, responsible son, the one who remembered birthdays, who showed up. He was also, according to the one photo I'd scoured online, intensely private, with a gaze that felt less like looking at you and more like seeing straight through you. He was the perfect target, respected, stable, and utterly off my sister's radar. To her, he was boring. To me, he was the ultimate leverage. The first contact was calculated. I joined a volunteer group I knew his company sponsored. I made sure I was there the day he came to check on the project. I was painting a fence, covered in specks of white, looking purposefully dedicated when he arrived. He didn't notice me in the crowd, not that day. The second time, I was the one handing him the project report. Our fingers brushed. I looked up, held his gaze for a second too long, and then looked away with a faint, flustered smile. It was a script, and he was an audience of one. But here, where the plan met its first unexpected variable, Ethan Han didn't play by the script. He didn't ask for my number that day. He didn't make small talk. He took the report, thanked me with a curt nod, and left. For 2 weeks, nothing. The rejection burned, but it also sharpened my focus. Then, on a rainy Thursday, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. A text, 7 words. "The fence looks good. It was you, right, Ethan?" he asked someone he'd remembered. The game was on, but the board felt suddenly, terrifyingly real. Our first coffee was not a romantic overture. He called it a debrief. He wanted to know about the volunteer group's morale, their real needs. He listened the way few people do, with a total analytical focus. I found myself talking less about my fabricated interest in community work and more about my actual life, my strained relationship with my sister, my frustration with my own career indecision. I was oversharing, breaking the character I'd built. and he just listened. Then he said, "Sibling dynamics are the first blueprint for all our relationships. They teach us about loyalty and about betrayal." He said it not as a therapist, but as someone who understood the cost of both. The turning point, the moment my revenge plot began to dissolve, was a Tuesday night in October. Lily and Leo were having a 6-month anniversary party. The invitation was a blade. I went to Ethan's apartment instead, under the pretext of dropping off a borrowed book. He opened the door, took one look at my face and said, "You look like you've been to a funeral." I broke down, not pretty tears, but the ugly, shaking kind. I told him everything. Not the revenge plan, but the raw truth. The betrayal, the loneliness, the feeling of being erased in my own family. He didn't hug me, he didn't offer empty platitudes. He made tea, sat across from me and said, "So your solution was to infiltrate my family to hurt hers? That's a high-risk strategy." My blood froze. He knew, he had known. He'd seen through the volunteer act, the coincidences from the very beginning. I stared at him, utterly exposed. Then he did something that changed everything. He smiled just slightly. I admired the audacity, and I was curious. "I wanted to see how far you'd take it. The cliffhanger wasn't my making, it was his, and he was just getting started." The room didn't spin, it crystallized. Every object, the steam from my untouched tea, the faint line between Ethan's eyebrows became painfully sharp. He had known, from the beginning, the humiliation was so total it bypassed shame and landed somewhere like awe. "You wanted to see how far I'd take it?" I finally whispered. "Yes," he said, his voice low and even. "To see if you were just hurt or if you were truly dangerous. There's a difference." And I needed to know which one was sitting across from me. That night, a new contract was written between us, unspoken but absolute. The fake dating premise was dead. In its place was something vastly more complicated, a collaboration. He wasn't offering forgiveness. He was offering a partnership in a different kind of strategy. "You wanted to weaponize a relationship," he said. "I have a proposition. Let's actually build one, and in the process, we both get what we need." What he needed, he explained, was a buffer. His mother was pressing him to settle down, to provide a stable image for the family business. The wrong kind of socialite would be a disaster. I was unpredictable but real, and my very public connection to his brother's girlfriend created a convenient, if messy, family narrative. My revenge plot was being drafted into his corporate and familial diplomacy. The first test was a family brunch. Lily and Leo would be there. Walking in with Ethan, his hand a steady, warm pressure on the small of my back, was a moment of pure, dizzying power. The look on Lily's face, a flicker of shock quickly masked by a tight, polished smile, was a drug. Leo looked confused, then awkwardly pleased. "Hey man, you too, that's great," he said, clapping Ethan on the shoulder. The parents beamed, seeing two sons with two sisters. A neat, happy package. They didn't see the fault lines. They didn't see Ethan's mother, Mrs. Han, watching me with the calm, assessing eyes of a seasoned general. Brunch was a masterclass in silent warfare. Lily asked me sweetly how we met. "Through Leo, indirectly," I said, smiling back. "The world is so small." Ethan, beside me, added nothing, just took a sip of his coffee, his leg pressing lightly against mine under the table. A signal, steady asterisk. When Lily launched into a story about her and Leo's recent trip, a story that subtly excluded me, Ethan waited for her to finish. Then he turned to me and asked, quietly, about a project I'd mentioned once in passing, giving me the floor with a respect that silenced her. It was a defense I hadn't asked for. It was protection, and it scrambled every emotional wire in my body. Afterward in the car, the silence was thick. "You didn't have to do that," I said. "Defend me." He glanced over. "Yes, I did. That's the arrangement. We present a unified front." Her tactic was obvious. Divide and conquer. It's what people do when they feel their territory is threatened. He was analyzing my sister like a business rival, and in that analysis, I felt seen in a way I never had. He saw the battlefield I lived on. The problem was, the longer we performed this partnership, the less it felt like a performance. The texts about our days became the first thing I looked for in the morning. Our debates about books or business ethics stretched late into the night, conversations that had nothing to do with Lily or Leo. He was rigorous, demanding, and unexpectedly funny in a dry, understated way. I found myself wanting his approval, not as part of the plan, but for me. The original revenge fantasy of me as the revered wife, Lily as the resentful sister-in-law, began to feel cheap, childish. The reality was more terrifying. I was developing genuine feelings for my target, and I had no idea if any of his were real. The escalation came from an outside force, social media. A blurred photo of Ethan and me leaving a restaurant, his head bent toward mine, was posted on a local gossip page with the caption, "Han Air getting serious." The comments were a mix of curiosity and venom. Then Lily shared the post, not with a comment, just a single cryptic emoji, a thinking face. It was a grenade rolled into the public square. Her friends, our mutual acquaintances, took it as permission. The narrative began to shift. Whispers of rebound, of trying too hard, of me latching onto the more successful brother out of spite. My calculated move was being reframed as pathetic. Ethan's response was not public. He called me. "The noise is irrelevant," he stated. "But it's designed to get a reaction. Your reaction, you understand the play?" I did. She wanted me to get emotional, to lash out, to prove I was the unstable, jealous sister. "So what's the counterplay?" I asked, my voice tighter than I wanted. "We escalate the commitment, publicly." My heart stalled. "What does that mean?" "My company's annual gala is in 3 weeks. You will be my date. Not as a plus one, but as my partner. We will be photographed. We will be gracious. And you will wear something that makes her post look like the amateur move it was." The gala preparation was a military campaign. A stylist arrived at my apartment with a selection of dresses sent by Ethan, not flashy, but impeccable, elegant dresses that spoke of quiet confidence rather than loud wealth. He was engineering my armor. The night of the event, when he saw me, he didn't offer a hollow compliment. He looked at me for a long moment, then nodded once. Perfect. It was the highest praise I could have imagined. The gala was a whirlwind of light, champagne, and powerful strangers. Ethan guided me through, his hand never leaving my back, introducing me not as my date, but as Clara. He listened when I spoke to his colleagues, his attention validating my words. I saw Lily and Leo across the room. She was stunning, glaringly so, but she was watching him watch me asterisk. And she saw what everyone saw, a man utterly, calmly present with his partner. The performance had become so convincing, I no longer knew where the actor ended and the person began. The critical pivot happened near the terrace. Needing air, I slipped outside, only to find Lily already there, smoking a cigarette she'd sworn she quit. We stared at each other in the cold silence. "You win," she said, the words brittle. "You got the bigger prize, congrats." The old anger flared. "He was never a prize, Lily. He was a person. That's what you never understood about Leo either," she scoffed. "And you understand Ethan. You think this," she gestured back to the glittering ballroom, "is real. He's using you to get mom and dad off his back. You're a convenient shield. The moment a suitable merger comes along, you're done." She dropped the cigarette, grinding it under her heel. "You've always been a better actor than me, but even you can't fake your way into that family for real." She walked back inside, leaving me frozen. Her words were poison, but they carried the chilling ring of a truth I'd refused to voice. Was this all just an elaborate, mutually beneficial transaction for him? The door opened again. It was Ethan. He took in my expression, the empty terrace, and understood immediately. "Lily," he said. It wasn't a question, I couldn't speak. He stepped closer. "What did she say?" I repeated her words, my voice hollow. "That I'm a convenient shield. That you'll replace me with a suitable merger." He was silent for a long time, looking out at the city lights. Then he turned to me. "My parents' marriage was a merger, a successful one by spreadsheets and social standing. It was also a 25-year lesson in quiet despair." He looked at me directly, his usual analytical mask gone, replaced by a raw honesty that was more frightening than any calm calculation. "I promised myself I would never repeat that. Convenience is the enemy of a real life. You are deeply inconvenient, Clara. You came into my life with an agenda wrapped in a lie. You have complicated my family dynamics enormously. You are the furthest thing from a safe, suitable choice." He took a breath. "And for the last 6 weeks, you have been the only real thing in it." Before I could process this, before I could even breathe, his phone buzzed insistently in his pocket. He ignored it. It buzzed again and again. With a frown, he pulled it out. His face changed, the raw emotion snapping back into sharp focus. He read a message, his jaw tightening. "We have to go now." "What, why?" "It's Leo," he said, already steering me back inside, his voice low and urgent. "There's been an accident, and your sister is telling the police that I had something to do with it." The gala's music was swallowed by the scream of sirens. We didn't go to the hospital. We were taken directly to the police station. In the sterile, buzzing fluorescence of an interview room, the story tumbled out in fractured pieces. Leo had taken Ethan's sports car, a vintage model he wasn't insured to drive, after a massive fight with Lily. He'd wrapped it around a lamppost 3 miles from their apartment. He was alive, but with a broken collarbone, 2 broken ribs, and a concussion. And Lily, hysterical at the scene, had told the responding officers that Ethan had provoked the fight, that he'd threatened Leo, that he'd all but handed him the keys, knowing his brother was too upset to drive safely. It was a masterstroke of narrative weaponization. She'd taken a domestic argument and reframed it as premeditated negligence, targeting Ethan's greatest strength, his responsible, protective nature. The police were polite but firm. They needed to understand the dynamics. Your girlfriend's sister, the detective said, his eyes on me, claims there's a pattern of intimidation, jealousy over her relationship with your brother. Ethan, sitting perfectly still, replied with a terrifying calm. Check the garage security footage. You'll see Leo took the keys without my knowledge. Check my phone logs. You'll see the only call between us tonight was me trying to reach him after my car's tracker alerted me it was moving. He provided the information like he was giving a boardroom update. He had the receipts, but in the court of family opinion, receipts are nothing against a compelling story. We were released after 3 hours. No charges, just a stern warning to be available. The real battle, however, was just beginning. The Han family home was a war council. Mrs. Han's composure was icy. This embarrassment, this public spectacle, because of this asterisk entanglement. Her gaze swept over me, not with anger, but with a profound, weary disappointment. She blamed the entire incident on the destabilizing force of my presence. Lily, the victim of Ethan's alleged aggression, was now the tragic, wronged figure. My revenge had backfired so catastrophically it had legitimized my sister as the wounded party and cast Ethan as the villain. In the desperate quiet of his apartment at 4 in the morning, Ethan finally broke, not into tears, but into a cold, focused fury. She didn't do this for Leo, he said, staring out the window. She did this to separate us, to force me to choose between you and my family's peace. It's a divide-and-conquer strategy applied to blood. He was right. The accusation was designed to be just credible enough to sow doubt, just serious enough to demand distance. The pressure from his parents would now be unbearable. The convenient shield had become a liability. I wanted to run, to end the arrangement and dissolve the poison I'd brought into his life. I told him so. You should let me go. I'll say it was all me, that I manipulated you. It'll fix things with your family. He turned from the window. In the dim light, he looked exhausted, but his eyes were clear. You still don't get it, Clara. You came here with a plan to break a family. I'm not letting you leave until we fix one, starting with mine. He wasn't fighting for us in a romantic sense. He was fighting for the principle, for the truth, and he was including me in that fight. The wait, it gets worse moment came 2 days later, not from the police, but from a private investigator Ethan hired. The fight between Lily and Leo wasn't about something trivial. It was about money. Leo, it turned out, had been making shaky investments, losing significant sums. He'd gone to Lily for help, and she'd refused. Their fight was about his financial recklessness. But here was the twist. Leo had previously gone to Ethan for a bailout months ago. Ethan had refused, but had offered him a structured job in the company to help him earn his way out. Leo had turned it down, too proud. Lily knew all of this. So when she accused Ethan of provoking Leo, she was redirecting Leo's financial shame onto Ethan's character. She was using a truth, Leo's resentment over the refused loan to sell a lie. But the investigator dug deeper and found the second, more devastating layer. Lily hadn't just fallen for Leo. She had targeted him. She had seen him, the less disciplined brother, as a point of entry into the Han family's wealth. My original crush had been an obstacle to her own calculated play. She took him from me not out of petty jealousy, but as a strategic move. I had been planning revenge against a romantic rival. She had been executing a long-term financial strategy from the very beginning. My betrayal was personal, hers was professional. Confronted with this, in the harsh light of his home office with the printed financial trails between us, I felt the world tilt. The entire foundation of our conflict was wrong. I thought I was the strategist. I was the amateur. She was the grandmaster. Ethan watched me process this, his expression unreadable. Do you see now? He said quietly. This was never about a boy. It was always about the board, and you walked into the middle of her game. The fallout escalated beyond us. The gossip page story about the police questioning hit local business news. Han Air questioned in brother's accident was the headline. Share prices for the family business dipped. A small but perceptible tremor. The board grew nervous. The stable, reliable son was now a source of scandal. Mrs. Han's pressure on Ethan to end the distraction became an ultimatum. Meanwhile, Lily played the grieving, supportive girlfriend perfectly at Leo's hospital bedside, giving soft-focus interviews about family forgiveness that subtly painted Ethan as the unforgiving one. We were trapped in a narrative of her making until Leo woke up, really woke up past the pain medication, and he asked for Ethan, alone. What was said in that hospital room, Ethan never shared in full, but when he came out, his face was grim. He found me in the waiting room. Leo confirmed the financial fight. He also confirmed Lily encouraged him to take the car, told him to blow off steam, that Ethan wouldn't mind. It wasn't premeditated framing. It was opportunistic manipulation. She saw the fight, saw the chance, and steered him toward disaster, banking on the aftermath to break Ethan and me apart. Armed with this, Ethan went to his parents, not to plead for me but to present the evidence. The financial records, Leo's statement, the investigator's report. He framed it not as a defense of our relationship, but as a threat assessment to the family. You are concerned about an embarrassment, he told his mother. The real embarrassment, the real danger, is the person willing to engineer an accident and a police investigation to get what she wants. She is in your son's hospital room right now, and Clara is the only one who knows how she thinks. It was the ultimate countermove. He reframed me from liability to asset, the sister who understood the threat. The dynamics shifted seismically. Mrs. Han's disapproval of me didn't vanish, but it was now tempered by a cold, pragmatic need, the enemy of my enemy. The bridge to the final act was built on a single, quiet decision. My parents, horrified by the police involvement and the public mess, demanded a family meeting. They wanted it all to stop. They wanted Lily and me to make up, to bury everything for the sake of appearances. The old, familiar pressure. Sitting in my childhood living room, the weight of their desperate desire for normalcy was suffocating. Lily played her part beautifully, the reluctantly conciliatory sister. Then my father looked at me. Clara, enough. Whatever this is with Ethan, it's clearly causing chaos. Maybe it's time to step back. I looked at Lily. I saw the faint, triumphant glint in her eye. She believed she had won. She had used the family system, the pressure for peace, as her final weapon. And in that moment, I heard Ethan's voice in my head. You still don't get it. I'm not letting you leave until we fix one. I took a breath that felt like my first in 24 years, and I spoke the words that would change everything. No, I said, my voice clear in the quiet room. I'm not stepping back. I'm moving forward. And I'm not asking for permission anymore. I stood up. I looked at my sister, not with anger, but with a final, absolute clarity. The game is over, Lily. You just don't know it yet. I walked out, and I didn't look back. The battle lines were finally, irrevocably drawn, not between sisters, but between the life I was given and the one I was going to fight for. Walking out of my parents' house, I didn't feel a rush of victory. I felt the terrifying weight of empty space. I had declared my independence, but the battlefield was now a void. For 2 days, there was only silence, from my family, from Ethan. It was the quietest, loudest sound I had ever heard. I stayed in my apartment, waiting for the other shoe to drop, for the next explosion. But the explosion, when it came, was a controlled demolition, orchestrated by Ethan Han. He didn't call me. He invited me to a meeting at his company's headquarters, not in his office, but in a neutral conference room. When I arrived, his assistant led me not to him, but to a small, glass-walled room where his mother, Mrs. Han, sat alone, 2 cups of tea already steaming between us. This was the trial, not of my relationship with her son, but of my usefulness. She didn't waste words. My son believes you have unique insight into a potential liability. He also believes you are loyal to him. I need to understand which of these beliefs is correct. For an hour, she interrogated me not about love, but about strategy. About my sister's patterns, her motivations, her potential next moves. I answered with a cold, clinical honesty that surprised even me. I laid out Lily's playbook, the use of emotional narratives as weapons, the targeting of perceived weaknesses, the relentless escalation. I wasn't defending myself. I was providing an intelligence briefing. When I finished, Mrs. Han studied me for a long moment. Then she nodded once. Ethan is waiting for you in his office. He was at his desk, but he wasn't working. He was just sitting. He looked up when I entered. "Well," he asked. "Your mother is terrifying," I said. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "She is, and I think she's decided I'm an asset, not an adversary, for now." "Good," he said. Then he stood up, came around the desk, and stopped in front of me. "Now about us." There was no grand declaration. Instead, he presented a new proposal, a real one. He laid out a plan, not for revenge or for show, but for a life. He wanted to date, actually date, to see if what had grown in the pressure cooker of chaos could survive in the quiet ordinary. He offered to help me find my own career path, separate from my family's expectations or his world. He was offering partnership with an exit clause. "The arrangement is over," he said. "Whatever this is now, it has to be because we both choose it every day with our eyes open. No scripts, no games." We started from zero, real dates, awkward silences, arguments about stupid things, the thrilling, ordinary terror of building something real. Meanwhile, the fallout from the accident settled. The police, with the security footage and Leo's revised statement, closed the case as an unfortunate incident. No charges for anyone. But the damage to Lily's credibility within the Han family was permanent. Mrs. Han made it clear she was no longer welcome at family functions. Leo, recovering and deeply ashamed, broke up with her. He cited the pressure, the manipulation. He moved out. For the first time, my sister was alone. My parents, caught between two daughters at war, initially tried to mediate. They wanted a reconciliation, a family therapy session, a tidy ending. I refused. I told them I needed space to build a life that wasn't defined by my reaction to Lily. It was the hardest conversation of my life. For months, our contact was limited to stiff, polite texts. The family unit I'd known was gone. But in its place, I was building something, a sense of self that existed outside of being someone's sister. A year passed. Ethan and I were living together. I had started my own small marketing consultancy, using the strategic thinking I'd honed in all the wrong ways for the right ones. One evening, my phone rang. It was my father. His voice was heavy. "It's your mother," he said. "She's in the hospital. It's her heart." In that moment, every grudge, every battle line evaporated. I drove to the hospital with Ethan beside me, his hand on my knee the entire way. In the waiting room, I saw Lily. She looked smaller, older. We didn't speak. We just waited, two strangers bound by blood and shared fear. When the doctor came out and said Mom would be okay, that it was a severe scare but not a crisis, we both broke down. Not together, but in the same room, our separate sobs echoing off the sterile walls. It was Ethan who brought us both cups of terrible waiting room coffee. He handed one to me then, without a word, handed the other to Lily. It was a simple, profound act of truce. Weeks of our mother's recovery, Lily and I existed in a fragile functional détente. We coordinated schedules, shared updates, but didn't speak of the past. Until one day at my parents' kitchen table, she looked at me and said, "I'm sorry, not for taking Leo, but for the accident, for the lies to the police, for trying to burn your life down because I thought it would warm mine." It was the first true, unstrategic thing she'd said to me in years. I didn't say, "I forgive you." I said, "I know." It was a start. The final surprising detail came from an unexpected source, Leo. He asked to meet me for coffee. He'd gotten his life together, was working a steady job, and was in therapy. He apologized for his part in everything. Then he told me something that reframed the very beginning. "That night at your birthday," he said, "Lily told me you asked her to test me, that you were too shy and you wanted her to see if I was really interested. She showed me a text. It was from your number that said, 'See if he'll hold your hand, I need to know.'" I stared at him, stunned. I had never sent that text. She had fabricated it, creating a permission structure for her own move and making me the architect of my own betrayal. The lie was so much colder, so much more calculated than I had ever imagined. It meant she hadn't just taken advantage of a situation, she had engineered the entire premise of her innocence. I told Ethan that night. He listened, then pulled me close. "It doesn't change where we are now," he said, "but it confirms what you always felt in your gut. Your hurt was real. Your response, while misguided, was human. Hers was something else entirely." That knowledge didn't bring rage. It brought a sad, final clarity. It allowed me to fully let go of the sister I thought I had and to accept the complicated, wounded person she actually was. The documentary ends not with a wedding, but with a choice. Ethan and I, on a regular Tuesday, are in our kitchen. He's making dinner. I'm complaining about a client. Zara, the cat we got after I joked about Ethan needing a fish, is weaving around our legs. My phone buzzes. It's a group text from my mother with Lily and my dad, a picture of her garden. We're all on the thread. It's not a happy family, it's a recovering one, and that's enough. I went after my crush's older brother to break my sister's heart. Instead, I broke the cycle we were both trapped in. I found a love built on truth instead of strategy, and in doing so, I found myself. The explosion didn't destroy us, it cleared the ground. And sometimes, that's the only way to build something that lasts. So what do we take from a story that began in betrayal and ended in a quiet kitchen? This was never a fairy tale about a prince rescuing a princess from a wicked sister. It was a case study in human dynamics under extreme pressure. It was about how the very patterns psychologists document, the sibling rivalry, the betrayal trauma, the compulsive drive for revenge, can become the unlikely raw materials for building a truer self if you're willing to walk through the fire. Research tells us sibling estrangement erodes our ability to trust. It tells us family betrayal forces a painful re-evaluation of our deepest bonds. Clara's journey maps directly onto that clinical landscape. But what the data can't capture is the strange alchemy that sometimes occurs. When a revenge plot, built on a foundation of pain, collides with a person of unexpected integrity, the entire structure can collapse. And in the rubble, you might find the pieces to build something sturdier. The explosion was necessary. It shattered a dysfunctional system, the toxic competition, the silent wars, the acceptable lies. It cleared the ground. For Clara and Ethan, it allowed a relationship to be built on conscious choice, not circumstance. For Clara and Lily, it created a distance that was painful but honest, a space where a fragile new kind of respect might one day grow. It forced a family to look at its own reflections, however cracked. The lingering question is whether revenge is justified. It's whether our deepest wounds can sometimes point us, in the most twisted way, toward our healing. Clara's wound pointed her toward Ethan, not because he was a cure, but because he was a mirror who refused to reflect a lie. He saw her strategy and called it what it was, then offered her a different way to be strong. In doing so, he broke the cycle she was born into. We tell these stories not for the drama, but for the blueprint they leave behind. They show us that love isn't something that happens to you when you're perfect and your life is in order. Sometimes, it's the thing that finds you in the middle of your worst mistake and asks you to make a better choice. It's the hand that doesn't let go when the ground is shaking, not because it's easy, but because it's decided what's true. Thank you for sharing this hour with us. If this story resonated with you, if it reminded you of a relationship in your own life, whether with a sibling, a partner, or your own past choices, we'd be honored to hear about it. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Tell us what piece of this journey stayed with you. If you know someone who needs to hear that rebuilding is possible after a personal explosion, share this with them. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join our community for more deep dives into the stories that shape us. This is more than entertainment. It's a conversation, and we're so glad you're part of it. Until next time.